At dawn by a Colorado mountain lake, travelers found 3 empty tents. No belongings, no fire, no signs of struggle. Sheriff led a search, thinking the group had gotten lost in the mountains. For a week, rangers and volunteers combed the trails, but found nothing. Authorities concluded it was likely an accident. The case was closed without answers. 11 years later, another sheriff, Donovan, was installed in the same county. He appreciated order, and one day he received a call from a man who identified himself as an assistant at a local auction house. Donovan found boxes filled with backpacks, photos, and documents belonging to the missing tourists in the belongings of retired ranger Ron Harvey. Upon visiting the mentioned address, he discovered an old garage stacked with boxes. Atop them was a camera wrapped in thick fabric containing 3 rolls of film and a tattered notebook. Inside another box lay worn maps of the area, marked as burial sites. This scene contradicted the official account of an accidental avalanche or wild animal attack. The sight of personal effects of tourists whose fate had been unknown for 11 years stirred a surge of adrenaline in Donovan. He questioned why Ron Harvey concealed these items and didn't share them with law enforcement, given his duty to assist in the search. His initial suspicion was that either Ron Harvey was implicated or shielding someone else. The discovery suggested that the previous theory of an accidental avalanche or wild animal attack might have been false. Dear friends, please help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. Donovan instinctively felt there were hidden aspects to it. Upon inspecting items in the garage, Donovan spotted an intriguing detail. A driver's license belonging to Jack Garrison and an old flashlight engraved with his initials were found together in one backpack. Another backpack bore an R mark, possibly for Randall. Rock climbing books of past years and a damaged flask labeled Thomas were also present. The collection appeared more than mere forgotten equipment. Initially, the police had searched everywhere but failed to locate these items. The new sheriff reached out to the ranger office to ascertain who Ron Harvey was and why he possessed such items. It was discovered that Harvey had worked in the mountain reserve for over 2 decades before retiring soon after the 3 men vanished. He enjoyed a good reputation. Based on his records, he took part in search operations and even led a team himself. No one had any suspicions towards him. Instead, he was lauded for his commitment to service. Donovan felt compelled to confront Harvey directly. He needed to locate his recently changed address, which was several hours' drive across the state. When Ron was reached on the phone, it became apparent that he was uneasy and eager to conclude the call quickly. Yet, he agreed to meet, stating he could elucidate why he had been secretive about certain matters. In the meantime, the sheriff unveiled a box containing maps with several mountainous regions marked in blue pencil. 2 locations, log pit and burial site, bore signatures in English next to them. The lower part of the word gray was cut off, suggesting border or garage. It seemed as if a route from the lake to the deserted forest had been sketched. Donovan grew apprehensive over the well-organized markings, hinting at a possible plan. Multiple undesirable findings were discovered within the sack. The film demanded immediate processing. Sheriff enlisted a photographer, Tim Carlisle, acquainted to him for the task. The images revealed landscapes suggestive of Colorado mountains around that particular lake. Several men gathered by a campfire, grinning and waving. Subsequent photos detailed their trail route, picturesque trails, and scenic vantage points. However, subsequent frames were peculiar. One depicted a shadow in the forest background, while another showed a hand in the frame's corner, seemingly attempting to obstruct the lens. The final image was a fuzzy depiction of a man with poor focus. This evidence made Donovan suspect that the men had either accidentally or purposefully documented something highly valuable to them. Upon development, some frames exhibited overexposure or improper development, hinting at incorrect rewinding. It remained unclear what occurred, but it was certain that the camera was from the missing men, and somehow ended up with Harvey. As time went on, Donovan grew increasingly convinced that the ex-ranger was concealing something, and that the 3 men might have come across him that night. The next day, Donovan embarked on the lengthy journey to Harvey's house. He took 3 backpacks, a camera, maps with notes, and departed. The old ranger resided in a small dwelling at the base of the hills. The encounter was tense. Upon seeing all the evidence, Harvey let the sheriff inside, sat down in a chair, and asked only one question. "Did you find the place?" Donovan replied, "No, but I want to know everything." Harvey started his narrative by admitting that on the day the men vanished, he had indeed joined the search. He first discussed his noble intentions. He aimed to rescue the men, yet he found they were in no need at a time when he encountered them. Earlier, near a restricted path leading to an ancient quarry, he had encountered a trio of friends the day prior. The area was marked by hazardous cliffs that could claim lives. He advised them to adhere to the designated trails, but they were self-assured and disregarded his warning. Subsequently, when they disappeared, Harvey supposedly found their abandoned belongings off the lake, partially up a slope. He intended to deliver these items to the police station, but he inexplicably altered his decision. Donovan inquired directly, "Why did you keep them for 11 years?" Harvey evaded eye contact. Nervously fidgeting with his shirt, he claimed that the backpacks had somehow been left with him, although the sheriff knew this explanation lacked credibility. He displayed images where a hand was blocking the lens. Harvey grew tense and stated it had to be one of the group members. Harvey's words seemed doubtful, and Donovan observed him nervously examining a chart marking a burial site. The sheriff inquired, "What does this inscription signify?" Harvey admitted he obtained the map from an elderly man who alleged that mines and pits were hidden in those mountain regions where criminals allegedly discarded bodies a century ago. Essentially, it wasn't a coincidental event. However, when Donovan persisted with questions about the markings, Harvey became perplexed and hastily concluded their discussion due to tiredness. The sheriff departed in bewilderment, suspecting that Harvey was concealing something. Maybe he was intentionally shifting blame or erasing his own footprints. The question continued to reverberate in Donovan's mind. Could those 3 have met with illicit harm? Now it was his task to investigate the mountainous areas denoted on the map and uncover whatever was concealed there. Donovan enlisted volunteers from the current rangers to investigate a site marked on the map as a burial location. At the initial spot, they discovered remnants of old campfires and debris, but no signs of human remains. The second location was elevated, featuring an abandoned, partially collapsed mine shaft, contrasting with the white surroundings. Inside, there was complete quiet. However, they found no evidence of recent human activity, despite thorough searching. At the third and most distant point, the mountains loomed steeply, leading to cliffs and a swampy area. Here, one ranger spotted peculiar holes in the ground, resembling craters covered with cobblestones. Upon excavating the top layer, they discovered an old tarpaulin and animal bones. No human remains were found, but about 10 meters away, beneath a fallen tree, they uncovered a piece of cloth reminiscent of tent parts. This material was subsequently examined by an expert. The fabric used by the missing individuals, as reported by their companions, matched the one found at the tent site. It appeared as though the tent had been slashed open and taken beneath a tree. Donovan surveyed the discovery, requesting the ranger to illuminate the nearby branches. Upon inspection, they discovered pieces of climbing rope resembling those used in rock climbing. The rope seemed to have been severed with a blade. No signs of bodies were found, yet the evidence suggested a violent altercation. As townsfolk began to speculate that the new sheriff was pursuing an outdated case, others saw this as an opportunity to uncover the truth, as the relatives of the missing never believed it was merely an accident. Donovan grew suspicious that the individual who concealed the gear could be linked to the disappearance. Notably, Harvey seemed to possess more information than he was disclosing. The sheriff summoned Harvey for another conversation in hopes of extracting a confession. At the station, Harvey appeared hesitant yet accepted that concealment was futile. In questioning, Harvey disclosed he had monitored the vicinity of the lake the previous night and observed 3 acquaintances quarreling with an unknown individual near a campfire. He admitted there was another man present, a stranger whom the boys supposedly ridiculed as they passed by the trail. The man shouted threats, but Harvey feared it was merely a drunken altercation and refrained from intervening. Upon waking, the campsite was deserted. When Donovan inquired why he hadn't immediately reported the incident to police, Harvey evaded with an ambiguous shrug. He explained his reluctance to instigate trouble, hoping the individuals would return. After a few days, during his search of the area, he found their backpacks and grasped that something was amiss. However, he worried his inaction might be scrutinized, so he covertly concealed these items to prevent an official probe. His approach towards the photographs mirrored this. He kept them hidden to avert investigation. In the woods, he stumbled upon a camera, and after developing its film, a faint face appeared on the final photograph. Worried about being perceived as complicit, he chose to conceal it. Yet this tale of an unknown figure raised more queries than it answered. Donovan suspected that Harvey was altering truths in order to evade acknowledging something more severe. However, there was at least a hint. Possibly they encountered a hostile individual who assaulted them. The enigma lingered as to why someone would relocate and conceal evidence, along with the identity of the person responsible for the burial site's arrangement. Donovan decided to re-question witnesses from that era. He managed to locate former campground neighbors who recalled hearing strange noises that night, but most had not given it much thought. One traveler, Raymond, stated he saw a bright light in the distance, as if someone had activated a flashlight at its highest setting. Another elderly angler, mentioned something similar. In the early hours, Carter spotted a ranger's vehicle traversing the coastline, an unusual occurrence as patrols typically take place in the evening. This suggested Harvey's presence at a crucial juncture. The ensuing events remained uncertain. Donovan opted to investigate another preserved part of the map, where a pencil mark indicated an unassuming clearing nestled at the cliff base. Accompanied by rangers, they drove there. Upon arrival, they discovered a dry depression amidst rocks. When illuminated with flashlights, they noticed fragments of a wooden structure, possibly an old hideout or box. At the bottom, they found what appeared to be abandoned clothing. Upon examination, they identified the jeans as Thomas Fields, which had been reported missing by his family. Nearby, a spent bullet casing was discovered, suggesting a single shot had been fired in that location. Donovan surmised that tourists might have been enticed and slain at this spot. The reason behind the incident remained unknown. It's possible they stumbled upon something forbidden or had a dispute with an influential figure. Harvey, knowing at least some of the truth, was the sole clue. However, the bodies were never located. Donovan requested a re-examination of the area using dog handlers due to the extensive and aging terrain. After a week of searching, dogs detected a scent in an abandoned mine. There they found personal belongings, a wallet and a pocket knife belonging to Michael Randall. Further inspection revealed that the mine had caved in approximately 10 meters. Experts presumed that if the bodies were present, retrieval would be challenging without heavy machinery. Furthermore, many years had passed since the disappearance, which could have caused all traceable biological evidence to disappear. Nevertheless, some details surfaced. The items appeared to have been concealed. No wild animal could have accessed the area. All indications suggested human intervention. Donovan understood this wasn't a typical altercation. It seemed possible that someone had intentionally led his friends into the mountains or ambushed them once they discovered they were filming something incriminating. The photos hinted at a brawl, while the bullet casing supported the theory of murder. However, Donovan wondered why Harvey hadn't disclosed everything. Was he an active participant or merely scared for his career? Donovan decided to intensify his interrogation. It was time to unveil the secrets hidden within this case. In another conversation at the station, the veteran ranger, pressured by the evidence, admitted that he had indeed arrived at the campfire that night upon hearing a gunshot. He witnessed one of the friends fall and two others flee. A stranger had threatened him too, instructing him to stay away from the incident. Harvey had become alarmed and left. Upon his return in the morning, no one was found. When he discovered the backpacks, he took all their contents, frightened of being implicated in the crime. He claimed he couldn't identify the stranger, he asserted they were strangers. Yet, Sheriff Donovan sensed that only a portion of the truth was being divulged, which nonetheless weakened the official account of the accident. Sheriff Donovan handed over the evidence to the prosecutor. The proof suggested murder, but with no specific suspect or bodies, the case was challenging. Regardless, the news stirred the media. The former park ranger concealed proof of tourists' disappearance. The families of the missing acknowledged that some clarity had finally emerged regarding their loved one's fate. They did not know where the grave was located or what exactly transpired, but they realized that the accident narrative was a fabrication. Harvey remained a crucial witness. He was given an offer: cooperate, and we will not pursue prison time for concealment. He agreed to disclose everything he knew. The stranger might have been a poacher in the region, as he was known to be a tough individual who aggressively guarded his traps and shot anyone spotted with illegal weapons. Harvey had encountered him a few times on the trail but didn't know his name. Following the gunshot, the ranger hastily departed without notifying the police, aware of potential trouble. Donovan started searching for suspected poachers in those years. Previous hunters who had been caught poaching were discovered, but insufficient evidence was available to convict them. None of them admitted guilt, yet the primary fact remained unchanged. To this day, 3 friends are still missing. The investigation reached a critical juncture where it was evident they had perished, yet the question of who was responsible remained unanswered. Eventually, the sheriff consolidated all the evidence. Officially, the missing persons case was reclassified as a suspected murder. The authorities discovered various circumstantial proof suggesting an unknown individual as the gunman, yet failed to identify him. Harvey was guided to the site where he heard the gunshot. There, they found a piece of fabric similar to Jack's clothing, but no bodies were present. Official records stated that the men likely perished and were either concealed within mines or buried in an unreachable deep ravine. With time, townspeople ceased discussing the incident while media shifted focus to other matters. Relatives received confirmation of their loved ones' deaths, yet remained unable to provide them with burial. The entire case was condensed into documents, backpacks, a camera, 3 days' worth of notes, map fragments, and a bullet lodged in an old quarry. Harvey was not accused of complicity but was discharged from the police force for concealing evidence and subsequently left the state. Police uncovered various pieces of circumstantial evidence that hinted at a stranger as the possible shooter. However, they could not establish his identity. Harvey led them to the location where he heard the gunshot. They found a piece of cloth resembling Jack's clothing there, but no bodies were located. Official reports suggested the men had probably been killed and either hidden within mines or buried in an inaccessible deep ravine for regular searches. As time passed, townspeople stopped discussing the case while media moved on to different topics. Relatives received formal confirmation of their loved ones' deaths but were unable to bury them. The entire incident was reduced to documents, backpacks, a camera, 3 days' worth of notes, scraps of maps, and a bullet in an old quarry. Harvey was not indicted for collusion but was dismissed from the police force for concealing evidence and departed the state. In their investigation, the police discovered several items pointing to a stranger as the potential shooter. However, they could not ascertain his name. Harvey directed them to the location where he heard the gunshot. There they found a piece of material consistent with Jack's attire, but no bodies were present. The authorities' report suggested that the men had probably been murdered and either secreted within mines or buried in an unreachable deep ravine. As days turned into weeks, townspeople stopped referring to the case, and the media shifted their attention elsewhere. Relatives received official word of their loved ones' deaths, but were powerless to give them a proper burial. The entire event was whittled down to documents, backpacks, a camera, 3 days' worth of notes, fragments of maps, and a bullet lodged in an old quarry. Harvey was not implicated in the crime, but was let go from the police force for withholding evidence and left the state. For a prolonged period, he grappled with remorse, ultimately falling sick. Donovan distributed the discovered artifacts to the families of the missing, drawing a conclusion. Three companions stumbled upon the mountains, where they met an aggressive individual who fired and erased proof. The ranger attempted to conceal his actions to preserve his reputation. The case remains unsolvable, though unofficially the sheriff admitted the truth to the people. This was the final chapter of the story, leaving behind a sour taste. Occasionally, even tranquil mountains conceal wicked secrets and fear festers beneath the ranger's duty.